welcome. Today we are going to look at History Paper 1, Section A, 25 marks. Give 2 reasons why the Akamba migrated from Mount Kilimanjaro area: to search for new land for settlement, to escape from external attacks, to escape from natural calamities. Question 2. Give 2 reasons why Council of Elders among the Ameru was important before the establishment of colonial rule. It passed laws for the community. It administered justice. It acted as the highest court of appeal. 3. What was the main feature of the 1986 Anglo-German agreement? It was the division of the East African mainland into British and German spheres of influence. 4. State 1 reason why Africans were denied equal education opportunities with other races during the colonial period: to stop them from competing with Europeans for white-collar jobs. 5. Identify 2 skills that Africans were taught in the schools that were established by the colonial government: reading, writing, arithmetic. 6. State 2 reasons why the Taita Hills Association was formed in 1939: to fight for the return of their alienated land, to protest against the stocking policy, to protest against taxation, to protest against Kipande system. 7. State 2 changes that were effected after the Lennox-Boyd recommendations. African elected members of parliament were increased from 8 to 14. A second African cabinet minister, Musa Amalemba, was appointed. 8. State the pressure group Daniel Arap Moi and other nationalists formed in the LEGCO, African Elected Members Organization, that is the AEMO. 9. Identify the government ministry Tomboya headed in the 1963 to 1964 period: Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Affairs. 10. State 2 ways in which Harambee practices have been abused: 1. Misappropriation of funds collected, forced contributions, unfair publicity for those involved in raising money. 11. Identify 2 responsibilities of a good citizen of Kenya: obedience to the laws of the land, readiness to defend the country from external aggression, reporting of lawbreakers to the authorities, participation in democratic process by voting, payment of taxes, good health practices, promoting the rule of law, contribution to national development for both morally and materially, being gender sensitive, taking care of the environment. Number 12. Identify 2 causes of international conflicts: border disputes, especially in areas where the members of the community have been divided or separated; economic rivalries between business people over sources of trade, goods, and markets. 13. Identify 2 categories of people who monitor violation or abuse of human rights in Kenya: the police, trade unions, religious groups, journalists, human rights lobby groups. 14. State the main parliamentary privilege enjoyed by MPs in Kenya: freedom of speech. They cannot be sued for whatever they have during parliamentary debates or within parliamentary buildings. 15. State 2 functions of a permanent secretary: supervises civil servants in his or her ministry, advises the minister on government policy, interprets government policy, provides sound financial management in the ministry. He is the professional head of a ministry. Section B, 45 marks. 16A. Identify 3 reasons for the migration and settlement of the Somali into Kenya. Somali migrated in search of better pasture for their livestock. Some of them migrated because of population pressure. Outbreak of diseases caused the Somali to migrate. Diseases also forced the Somali to migrate. In some cases, family and clan conflicts caused groups of Somali to migrate. 16B. Discuss the results of the migration and settlement of the Kushites in Kenya. They intermarried with other Kenyan communities. For example, the Borana intermarried with the Pokomo. Their settlement into Kenya brought conflicts and sometimes wars between them and other communities. Trading activities developed between them and other communities. There was cultural exchanges between them and other communities. Some communities became extinct through natural absorption by the Kushites. Some of their communities formed alliances in order to strengthen their resistance. The Redil and the Samburu allied Turkana. 17A. Give 5 reasons for the Akamba resistance against the British. The British persistence after the establishment of an administration station at Machakos adversely affected the trade between the Akamba and the coast. The British interfered with their trading activities and resistance. 2. The British porters and askari stole, raped women, and destroyed Akamba property. 3. The British had no respect at all for Akamba traditions. In 1890, the British administrator George Leith committed religious sacrilege by cutting down a tree from a sacred place and using it as a flag force. 4. British attempts to stop Akamba raiding activities on the Agikuyu caused discontent. 5. The British forces who were stationed at their garrisons at Mwala and Makuyuni were unpopular among the local populations as they looted and raped women. Number 17b, discuss the reasons for the failure of armed resistance against the British by Kenya communities. Number 1, disunity among Kenyan communities. They at times fought for one another, thus giving room to the British to concentrate their soldiers in one area at a time and play one community against another. 2, Africans lacked modern weapons. Thus, while the British were using the machine gun, they used spears, bows, and arrows. 3, African warriors were not trained prior to their military encounters with the British. Instead, they were haphazardly gathered in times of need. 4, some communities had been reduced in populations by epidemics. They were unable to offer effective resistance to the British. 5, poor leadership. Some leaders were bribed with gifts to give up armed struggle. 18a, identify 3 women leaders who led their communities in the struggle against the establishment of colonial rule. Mekatilili wa Menza of the Agiriama, 2 ne Wakathoka of the Akamba, 3 Morangiti of the Abagusi, 4 Siakalain Mbarungu of the Ameru. Number 19b, discuss the role of women in the struggle for independence in Kenya. 1, some led their communities in the struggle against the establishment of colonial rule. Example, Mekatilili wa Menza. 2, some encouraged their communities to fight for freedom. Hiji Muthoni Nyanjiro, who in 1922 urged the men to storm the police lines in Nairobi and secure the release of Harry Thuku. 3, they mobilized material and financial resources for the nationalist struggle. 4, they provided food to the Mau Mau freedom fighters who were holed up in the Mount Kenya and Aberdare forest. 5, some, for example, Field Marshal Muthoni actively participated in the Mau Mau War. 6, they provided military logistics and intelligence information to the Mau Mau fighters. 7, they boosted the morale of the nationalists as wives, for example, Mama Ngina Kenyatta. Women were the pillars of domestic wealth creation in the absence of the men who were actively fighting against the colonialists. They provided comfort to the male soldiers. They provided the morale that was necessary to boost and sustain the nationalist struggle. 19a, state 5 grievances which the Africans in Kenya had against the colonial administration by 1923. Land alienation, forced labor in settler farms, taxation which was used as a tool to force Africans to seek employment. 4, the Kipande system. 5, the reduction of wages. For example, in June 1921, wages paid to Africans were slashed in an attempt to make them stay in employment for a longer period. Lack of representation in the Legislative Council. 7, restriction from growing cash crops. 19b, what were the terms of the Domsha White Paper? 1, it declared that Kenya was primarily an African country with African interests being paramount. 2, it ruled out further advance towards self-government under European rule alone, hence no further constitutional privileges for the settlers. 3, it reserved the White Highlands for European settlers only. Asians were allowed to elect 5 members to the Legislative Council on a communal rather than a common electoral roll. 5, it ruled out racial segregation in residential areas and restriction on Indian immigration. 6, African interests were to be represented in the Legislative Council by a nominated missionary. Section C, 30 marks. 20a, name 5 symbols of national unity: the coat of arms, the loyal pledge, the presidency. National awards and National Assembly. 20b, discuss the factors that limit national unity. An equitable distribution of resources. This may cause divisions among members of the Kenyan society. It causes an animosity between those favored and less favored by the administration. 2, corruption. The act of giving and receiving bribes militates against national unity because it favors certain individuals who are able to get services from the government and private sector is faster. 3, racism. Discrimination on the basis of race creates disunity. 4, tribalism creates animosity between communities. 5, nepotism, that is favorism of one's family and relatives, creates resentment towards the perpetrators. Religion. Religious differences may at times cause disunity among the people. 7, multipartyism. The existence of many different political parties may lead to disunity due to different party ideologies. 21a, state 5 functions of Kenya Police. maintenance of law and order, to prevent and investigate crime, to arrest suspects and take them to court, to prefer charges against suspects, to investigate vehicles and ensure they are roadworthy, to recover stolen property, to assist international police, that is Interpol, to combat crime. 21B, discuss the challenges facing police officers in Kenya today. 1. Inadequate means of transport, as some police stations do not have adequate vehicles or some areas are inaccessible. This makes it difficult for the police to assess scene of crime. 2. Poor working conditions. Some of the police stations are dilapidated and lack basic necessities, for example, water, stationery, etc. 3. Increased crimes rate due to unemployment and drug abuse, among the other reasons, poses a challenge to the police. 4. Of rapport between the police and the public. This sometimes makes members of the public not to report crime and hide the criminals. 5. Availability of sophisticated weapons in the black market. Some criminals possess more powerful weapons than the police. Put personnel to effectively combat crime. 7. Corruption. Some members of the police force are corrupt and this compromises the efficiency. 8. Some police officers are threatened by criminals and this demotivates them from doing their work. 9. Delays in protection of suspects in the courts demotivates them. 10. Some criminals enjoy protection from some powerful individuals, which leaves the police helpless in combating crime. 22A. State 3 domestic sources of revenue. Direct taxes, for example, income tax. Indirect taxes, for example, customs duty. Sale of licenses, for example, business, road, and driving licenses. 4. Profits made by parastatals. 22B. Discuss the challenges faced by the government in the implementation of a national budget. 1. Increase in population. Kenya's population growth overstretches budgetary allocations in departments such as health and education. 2. High interest rates on loans borrowed from international communities. Sometimes this forces the government to abandon some projects to finance loan repayments. 3. Natural disasters, for example, floods, drought, and famine. Disease interferes with the implementation of budgetary proposals, as money has to be used to cater for the needs of the people at such times. 4. Inconsistent economic policies interfere with implementation of budgetary proposals, as original projects are abandoned and new avenues of expenditure are created. 5. Corruption or misappropriation of government money by some individuals in the government. This renders some projects incomplete at the end of the government financial year. 6. Tax evasion by some individuals. This slows down implementation due to lack of revenue. Did you understand? Kindly let me know in the comment section below. Also, let me know what video to look at tomorrow. Thanks a lot for subscribing and listening to me. God bless you.